Doc Janssen joining me here. Watch Your Back. Very, very unique name for a team. Explain.
Well, I think it sends a couple different messages. Number one is to always look over your back as we're right behind you. Number two, the secondary message is it's really what we do professionally. And my profession is in taking care of patients with complex spinal problems and specifically in spine surgery. So we found a way to catch something simple, something catchy, but still sends the message that gives us our identity both in the boat as well as out of the boat.
Speaking of being a surgeon and having attention to detail, which you certainly do, it also rolls over into your racing because you make sure this boat is ready to go each and every race day, but especially Key West.
Absolutely. You know, preparing in life is nothing but about attention to detail. It's really preparing in the execution of the race or the execution of the surgery or the execution of anything you do in life. All comes together perfectly with all planning. My father always gave me the motto that those that fail to prepare are preparing to fail. So we spend a lot of time with this boat throughout the season, but now for the next 5 weeks getting ready for Key West. And that requires a lot of team. The team, I think, is well polished. Everybody has responsibility. Everybody knows everything about the boat. We have it dialed in. We're ready. But even then, things can go wrong because Key West is a long week of racing.
You mentioned the word father. You, as a father, have made this team into a family affair.
Well, that's absolutely correct. That's the primary reason. We started with the bigger boat, the Saratoga Stampede. Both of my children got a chance to run in it. But then we built this boat specifically. It's the only fountain ever built for Super V light racing, 30 foot. I built it so that both my daughter and my son could run. And different races, each one of them have been racing over the last few years. And I think that's what's really, really exciting. Both of them now are in college. They call me all the time. We talk about the boat, but they won't be able to make it to Key West this year. But they did each get a race throughout the season.
This being a smaller boat, the smaller boat takes much more of an impact on the larger waves, and that leads back to spinal compression. How do you guys handle that in these smaller boats?
Well, you're absolutely right. I think there's a huge load in these smaller boats, and I've talked to a couple other racers and helped them in the last few weeks off of their spine injuries that have occurred in these boats. I think this is much more of a challenge for us to drive this boat in the water than it did our 42-foot boat. I tell people this takes a lot more finesse, a lot more planning, a lot more skill and quick judgment than the bigger boats, sometimes that have a lot more horsepower.
Now, Key West, the racing venue there, is very, very unique. You have all kinds of different things to contend with. The wall, the inner harbor, going by fast across the channel markers there. Everything to think about it, which makes it the granddaddy of offshore racing.
Absolutely, it's the granddaddy, and it requires a huge amount of planning to be actually involved. It's not just getting up in the morning and saying, hey, there's no wind, I think it's going to be flat. That's not the case. We've had a lot of experience out there, and we know the course changes all the time. Unlike NASCAR and road racing, very competitive, very challenging, the environment and the surface is changing all the time here. And you have to be able to set the boat up to what's going to happen before it happens to you by trying to predict what's occurring on each different corner, the shallow water, the deep water, and the corners, let alone everybody out there that's running with you. It's a real challenge, but that's the reason we're involved. And that's the reason I think that attracts so many people to boat racing.
Now talk to us about this class, because same horsepower and on and on. Very, very tight competition.
It really is. I think the key with the class like this is the goal is to standardize the boats based upon weight, based upon horsepower, based upon drive, and that way then it really brings the ability to set the boat up as the end and the skill and the talent of pulling it together. That, I think, is the real challenge with this class, which attracts us compared to the unlimited classes where there are no rules and you can pretty much do whatever, and many times you win based upon horsepower and based upon spending money. Here it's really dialing it in with certain parameters, and I think that's what makes this an entry for so many other professionals and people to get into. It's a very affordable sport, and it really sets the ground rules so that everybody can be involved.
You mentioned setup. Your setup man, Brian Forehand, one of the best in the business.
Absolutely. You know, Brian, I'm fortunate to have a great relationship with Brian. Brian has probably spent as much time in a V-bot as anybody in the world. He was groomed and trained by Reggie Fountain, tests all the boats that come out of the Bajas, the fountains, and everything that comes out of the Liberty factory, and he tests them and sets them up. And so I'm fortunate because I get in the boat with him and he can feel something that I still don't get what he feels, and we go back and we change it and it's perfect. So I've had that ability to spend a lot of time with him, and he is just a real wizard of the feel and transferring that information to other people, how we change things.
Doc Janssen, watch your back, looking to surgically destroy the competition in Key West.
Absolutely.